The two most important questions in science right now: what's the universe made of? 70% of the universe is a mysterious entity called dark energy, and we have no idea what it is. 27% is another mysterious entity called dark matter. So bottom line, what's the universe made of? Nothing.
One of the most prolific, inspiring thought leaders of our time.
Deepak Chopra has been at the intersection of science and spirituality for almost a half century.
Now you're sharing with us that the secret to our spiritual success is hidden within the use of AI.
I started playing with ChatGPT, Perplexity, DeepSeek. I started actually arguing with these AI services. All the chatbots started supporting my argument based on the prompt. So I realized that even AI has selection bias. It has a gender bias, it has a racial bias, even a scientific bias.
There's such a fear right now around AI, especially its ethics and bias.
AI, in principle, could cause human extinction. Technology is way ahead of our spiritual evolution. Yes. That's a very dangerous combination. There's a critical mass of people shifting in consciousness. We are in trouble.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
Deepak, I think we're going to surprise a lot of people today because naturally for the past few decades, you've been guiding people towards spiritual success. And now you're sharing with us that the secret to our spiritual success is hidden within the use of AI. And not only that, you actually have deepakchopra.ai. We're going to put a code for everyone who's listening and watching to go and access this. You've actually created your own AI. But let's start with, why has that mission intersected? Why have those two things, spirituality and an AI, intersected for you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Jay, for having me. As you know, the last maybe 2 decades, I've been interested in the nature of what is fundamental reality. What's the universe made of? And how do we know what we know? And those are the two most important questions in science right now. If you go on Google and say, what are the 125 open questions in science? The first open question in science is, what's the universe made of? And you would say, we know what the universe is made of. It's atoms, molecules, force fields, gravity, etc. Well, for those who don't keep up with the science, 70% of the universe is a mysterious entity called dark energy. And we have no idea what it is. It's a force that's the opposite of gravity. So as we are speaking right now, the space between galaxies is moving faster than the speed of light, something called the cosmological constant, described by Einstein. And then after he described it, he said, it's an embarrassment, I didn't mean it, or something like that. But he was actually right. There is some entity that is expanding the universe faster than the speed of light. We don't know what it is, except it's the opposite of gravity. So that leaves 30% of the universe, which is basically remaining. Of that, 27% is another mysterious entity called dark matter. The reason it's called dark matter, it's invisible. Matter is normally things like this, or your body, or this piece of furniture. You can see it, you can touch it. Matter, material. But dark matter is invisible. So you can't see it. So why do we call it matter? It's responsible for most of the gravity in the universe. So if you didn't have dark matter, planets would spiral off and disappear into intergalactic space. You and I wouldn't be here. So now we have 3% of the universe that remains, which is the atomic universe. Of that, 99.999% is invisible interstellar dust. We don't know what it is. We think it is hydrogen and helium created at the Big Bang. So now we are left with 2 trillion galaxies, 700 sextillion stars, and uncountable trillions of planets. According to the James Webb Telescope, maybe 60 billion habitable planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone. They look for things like the Goldilocks zone, the temperature, gravity, electromagnetic activity. But based on that, 60 billion habitable planets in the Milky Way galaxy, which if you multiply that by 2 trillion, then the universe is teeming with life as we know it. If a planet is too close to its sun, it's too hot, no life. Too far away, too cold, no life. But other factors like cosmological constants. With those calculations, it's almost certain that the universe is full of life, like we know it. But that's 2 trillion galaxies. That's 0.01% of the universe, atomic. But we also know that atoms are made of particles. And when you're not looking at those particles, they disappear into what are called waves. And if you ask scientists where do these waves come from, they use words like Hilbert space, this and that. Bottom line, the space that creates the universe and atoms is a mathematical space in mathematical imagination. It's not a real space. So bottom line, what's the universe made of? Nothing. So, but you probably know the Buddhist idea, form comes from formlessness. Okay, so the universe is made from nothing, which leads to the second question, which is called the hard problem of consciousness. Then why does it look like this? Why does it look like you, me, this microphone, mountains, galaxies, rainbows, sun, moon? That's called the hard problem of consciousness. So until now, most scientists have said that the brain produces consciousness in the same way as your stomach produces hydrochloric acid. But that's being questioned right now. So like now, you and I are speaking, people are listening to us, they're watching us, but there's no experience in their brain. There's no sound in their brain. There's no texture. All you see is neurochemistry. So how does neurochemistry give rise to this experience? No one knows. That's called the hard problem of consciousness. It's been there since Plato. Plato said there's a disconnect between the mind and the brain. But recently, most scientists, beginning with their physicalists, they believe that the brain produces thoughts and feelings and emotions and desires and intuition and creativity and everything that we call experience. But they can't explain it. How do neurochemicals create this? That's called the hard problem of consciousness. The more I thought about this, and coming from our background and looking at Buddhist teachings and Vedanta, in Vedanta and Buddhism, the universe is a simulation. We have different words. Maya. Maya means illusion, which is a very interesting word because Maya is the origin of the word matrix, of the word matter, of the word time, measurement, meter, music, is all Maya. So the Indians, if as they say jokingly, if religion is the opiate of the masses, then the Indians have the dope on it. Okay. So in the Indian philosophy and in Buddhist philosophy, the universe is a projection of a deeper consciousness. Brahman, Brahmand.
Yeah.
Or nothing, emptiness and form. Nothing is everything. I started to think about this and I started to play with ChatGPT. I became friends with Sam Altman, who's very interested in consciousness. And I realized that actually the universe itself is digital. The difference between you, this sofa, this microphone, a mountain, and a galaxy, just a different combination of zeros and ones. Okay, that's the difference between this and this. A different combination of zeros and ones. Now we have quantum computing, which says zeros or ones or zeros and ones simultaneously. So it occurred to me, and I came up with a mathematical formula based on traditions of the East. Infinity is equal to 0 is equal to 1. Nothing becomes everything, and that nothing is infinite, and it's all one. And it's divine. It's the matrix. The divine is the matrix, and the universe is is a projection of a digital workshop outside of space-time. I started to play with that on the internet, got blasted by mainstream scientists, but then other scientists came to my side. I made scientists with the world. Best friend became a cognitive scientist called Don Hoffman. You should have him on your program. He wrote a book called The Case Against Reality, that the universe that we see is not real. It's a projection. Now, in modern science, they're saying it's a simulation. Then people ask, who's simulating? Well, maybe a higher intelligence, maybe a cosmic computer, maybe an alien form, but they're guessing. We are on the right track if we understand that Atman is Brahman, and you are part of that, and you are a participant in the creation of the human universe. So then I started playing with ChatGPT, Perplexity, DeepSeek, and all these. And I started actually arguing with these AI services because they have a bias. They're mainstream physicalist bias. And they would give me what I thought the wrong answers. Where does imagination come from? They point to a certain part of the brain. I said, no, that's the neural correlate of imagination. Where does imagination come from? Don't know. So even the chatbot said. So
I
said
it doesn't know.
It doesn't know. So I said, now, can you look at Vedanta? Can you look at Advaita? Can you look at Buddhist philosophy? Reframe the question that consciousness, the ontological primitive of the universe, matter is an illusion. It's a perceptual activity in consciousness. And boom, suddenly a revolution occurred. All the chatbots started supporting my argument based on the prompt. So I realized that even AI has selection bias. It's the selection bias is physicalist scientists who are basically, in my view, are superstitious. They believe that everything starts with matter and mind comes first. We believe the opposite. Mind comes first, matter comes second, and even mind is a modification of a higher consciousness. Mm-hmm. So that led to the book. I went and met Sam, who supported the book. And if you haven't seen his recent tweets on Twitter, other than his arguments with Elon Musk, he's talking about consciousness, and we are on to something, a major revolution in science, which brings Indian spirituality right on the forefront.
I mean, I'm mind blown listening to you because the thought process that just went into that journey you broke down for us requires not only a conviction in our Eastern philosophy and traditions, which of course... Experientially, which we have, but at the same time, being able to debate AI. And from what I'm garnering here, you're saying that AI was actually, or ChatGPT and the other platforms, they actually allowed for your thinking to impact and influence.
See, because it's a large language model, it can explore things that normally are not explored. You say, what do the Brahma Sutras say about this? AI will give you an answer because nobody's asked that question, but that data is there.
Yes,
in Sanskrit, in translations by various gurus, scholars, whatever. So there's a chapter in the book called The Art of the Prompt. So unless you know what question you're asking, you will actually, AI will not access that information unless it asks that But now I can say, what did the Buddha think about this? What did Plato think about this? What did Wittgenstein think about it? The data is there, except it's not being accessed.
Yes.
So now you train the AI to access that data.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
What this technology is doing is going to leapfrog our biological evolution and all the things that you heard about in yoga. Extrasensory perception, knowledge of the future, memory of other lifetimes. We will have access to that. With AI, we can reverse climate change. You can create prosperity. You can resolve conflicts. You can eliminate chronic disease. You can do gene editing. You can do epigenetic modulation. You can reduce inflammation. In other words, the time is coming where you don't have to die of a disease. AI, improperly used, can create cyber warfare, poison the food chain, interfere with democracy or voting, create fakes, and some of them are very good. You can't tell the difference, and they're only going to get better. So AI, in principle, could cause human extinction. That's the fear.
Why do you feel, though, that now AI and spirituality coming together can actually lead to a discovery of consciousness? Why do you believe that that's the entry point?
Well, that is the ultimate goal. So AI will never be conscious, okay? But it's super intelligent. The thing that differentiates Homo sapiens from all other species, up until 40,000 years ago, there were 8 different types of humans: Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Neanderthals, etc. They all had a language for 3 things: food calls, mating calls, and danger calls, because that's how we survive. Sexuality, danger, and food, survival. Including all the humans. All animals have their own language, whales and dolphins and all, but it's all about food, sex,
Danger.
and danger. Then we, Homo sapiens, created a language for telling stories. There's a phrase in anthropology: to be human is to have a story. What is the Mahabharata? It's a story. What is the Ramayana? It's a story. What's the Bible? It's a story. What's the Quran? It's a story. So to be human is to have a story. But we didn't stop there. We created other stories, like money is a story. Okay? It was, I'll fix your shoes, you give me a haircut. Became too inconvenient, so here's the shell. Too inconvenient, here's this coin. Too inconvenient, here's this piece of paper. Too inconvenient, digital. 2 digits, zeros and ones, you have crypto. So we have created stories. We created something called Greenwich Mean Time, latitude and longitude, money, nation states. So I realized that actually what we call the universe is a human story based on human experiences, based on human biology. There is no such thing as the real universe. So if you have, say, a dragonfly who has 30,000 eyes, what does the world look like to a dragonfly? You have no idea. What does the world look like to a bat, which knows the echo of ultrasound? A chameleon whose eyeballs swivel on 2 different axes. You can't even remotely imagine. So what's the real look of the world? What's the real nature of the world? According to Vedantis, silly question. The world we experience is a projection of a deeper consciousness as filtered through the human brain, not through any other brain. In other words, it's a superposition. Adi Shankara said that long time ago. And it's even there in the Rig Veda. Can you believe it? And then all the things about health and longevity, there's huge revolution going on.
Yes.
But if you go to Yoga Vaishishta, he says, time is the consumer and we are its food. We metabolize time. And then he goes into the nature of time in consciousness. So I realize our traditions and the knowledge contained in the Vedanta and all the sciences, including Vedic astrology, including all the different Vedic music, Vedic mathematics, that is the key to understanding consciousness. And now I can use AI to tap into that. Mm-hmm. And so this book particularly, and my AI, is not a large language model because I don't trust them anymore. You see, large language models even hallucinate. If they don't have the answer, they make one. So this is what we call a small language model. It has 98 of my books. It has my weekly column in the San Francisco Chronicle, my column in the London Times, and one question that I've answered every day for readers for the last 40 years. So the database is only mine.
Yes.
And it will not mix up. And it's also what is called a RAG model. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmentation Generation, which means if something is, I have said, which is obsolete, it'll delete that and upgrade the information.
Wow.
So, this is a health coach, it's a mental coach, it's a guru, and it's a research assistant, and it's a personal friend. That's the basis of the book. And DeepakChopra.ai becomes its practical application.
Before we dive into that, because I want to ask you about how we can use deepakchopra.ai for our own personal growth.
Please do.
I want to talk to you about this challenge that people have with the large language models that you have. There's such a fear right now around AI, especially its ethics and bias. It sounds like you see that from the perspective you're looking at it as well.
Yes, because listen, AI improperly used can create cyber warfare, poison the food chain.
How? How? Explain for those people who may not be aware.
It just sets off the technology. So if I'm good at AI, I can get into a nuclear plant and unleash a nuclear weapon. If I want to interfere with democracy or voting, create fakes, and some of them are very good. You can't tell the difference, and they're only going to get better. So AI, in principle, could cause human extinction. That's the fear. And unfortunately, our technological evolution has outpaced our spiritual evolution or emotional evolution. You know, its technology is way ahead of our spiritual evolution and our emotional. That's a very dangerous combination. Tribal minds, medieval minds, and modern capacities. Drones. I mean, it's legit now to kill a head of state using drone technology. I was in Davos.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, what did the Israelis do? They got rid of all the Iranian, leaders. How? Drones. All run by AI. So while I was in Davos and Zelensky was, his motorcade was going by, there were about 7 trucks interfering with air signals on the internet so somebody wouldn't kill him with a drone. Because the people are doing that. It just happened with the Iran. And it's happening with the Houthis. Even they have access to AI, with drones, and they can, drown an intercontinental ballistic missile. So that's the danger. I sat on a committee with the UN and somebody else, and they were talking about this doomsday. And I was on Zoom. So while they were talking, I went on AI and said, give me a way to prevent the misuse of AI. Can we program the misuse of AI through AI? And it gave me 2 pages on how it could be done.
What did it say?
Oh, it said we can build in algorithms that will interfere with anything that's diabolical or unethical. We can create algorithms. But then people have to agree, and a lot of special interest groups who make money with war and terrorism on every side, they don't want that. They don't want peace, okay? They don't want that because this is what gives them their power. But right now there's an initiative at the UN, and I'm participating with that, is AI for good, AI for humanity, AI for reversing climate change, AI for addressing chronic disease. And, when you really go into the depths of this, with AI, we can reverse climate change. There are 5 things we need to do. You can reverse climate change. You can create prosperity. You can resolve conflicts. You can eliminate chronic disease. You can do gene editing. You can do epigenetic modulation. You can reduce inflammation. In other words, the time is coming where disease, you don't have to die of a disease. You can choose the moment of your death through Mahasamadhi, which is what our tradition says. You should live long, healthy, and then die peacefully, been there, done that, next incarnation, and even planned that. AI gives you all the information if you ask for it. You see Sam Altman's quote there?
Mm-hmm. I'll read it. Sam Altman, I'm reading from the front cover of Digital Dharma for those who are listening. That's Deepak Chopra's book. AI has the potential to help us create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthy, and joyful world. Digital Dharma shows you a path. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI.
So why aren't we doing it? And we're not
What's
doing
holding
it.
us back? What's holding us back?
Ego-based gangster leaders across the world. The world is run by male gangsters, unfortunately. We can cause a spiritual revolution if we use AI properly. And not through government, maybe through UN, through people. Grassroots. who said we're fed up with this world of violence.
I love your ability to be able to oscillate between the AI conversation that's happening in the world and then the spiritual truths that have been there since time immemorial.
Mostly in the East, but also in the West.
Yes.
You know.
But even when you say it, it comes down to every technology that humans create or discover. We always have this inner conflict and war of how will it be used.
Listen.
And sadly, it seems the ego...
See, if we had not discovered fire long time ago, we wouldn't have the human brain. Because once we started cooking food, everything about our biology changed. We were able to absorb micronutrients. The human brain evolved because of the discovery of fire. Had we not discovered fire, we wouldn't have the industrial age. We wouldn't have the steam engine. Okay. Of course, fire burnt down Los Angeles city. So fire can destroy a city, but it can also create a steam engine and revolutionize the industrial age. Historically, between 1887 and 1903, which is not even 20 years, humans created the light bulb, the automobile, the airplane, and the telephone. So let's pretend you were shipwrecked in 1885 and you were rescued 20 years later. 20 years later, and you saw the world, you wouldn't recognize it. You would expect horses and carriages, but now you see these machines moving along with horses and carriages. You see people talking on the telephone. You see people flying from one place to the other. You say, what's going on? So that's a leapfrog of cultural evolution. The next leapfrog is not only cultural, it's biological, which means that as we acquire this new knowledge and tap into the wisdom of the ages, our neural networks will change. Right now, if people are listening to us or watching us, it doesn't matter. The genes in their frontal cortex are being activated. If you and I were having an emotional conversation and somebody in Africa or China is watching it, their reptilian brain would change. So what this technology is doing is going to leapfrog our biological evolution and all the things that you heard about in yoga, extrasensory perception, knowledge of the future, memory of other lifetimes. We will have access to that.
Do you think that we have the ability to cope with that?
Well, if we don't, we don't adjust, we become extinct. So you see, humans are different from every species only for two things. Well, other than walking upright and wearing clothes, we use language, and now we have large language models. And the two, and we are storytellers, but there's something even deeper. We are tool makers. Even in Stone Age, we had tools. But every tool has two things. A knife, you can kill a person. In a surgeon's hand, it heals you. So you can't get away from both. The other thing is, once the technology is born, you can't take it back. It's like a child that's born. You can't return to the womb. So either you adjust, that's very Darwinian, you adapt, or you become irrelevant. So now how do we adapt? How do we cope? But not only how do we cope, how do we make it sacred?
I think that's the challenge, that when you talk about grassroots, so many people today, because they're less aware of how to use things for good, most of us are consumers of what is created around us. As you said, we're having conversations with AI based on us not asking questions because we're unaware.
I went to AI, I said, solve the Gaza problem for me. Create peace and prosperity in Gaza. 15 steps, all very practical. Resolve the conflict, create abundance on both sides, make everyone happy. The technologies are there. Who's interested? Children in Gaza and children in Israel. Talk to the leaders. They're not interested because this is how they get power. So unless there's a critical mass of people shifting in consciousness, we are in trouble.
Yeah. And the challenge is that a lot of us at the grassroots, most people are actually scared that AI is going to take their job.
Yeah.
So there's a fear of
No,
job
I tell
displacement.
kids, and I actually, next time I come on your show, I'll show you a video game that I've created for children that gives them brownie points, and they can buy more video games if they breathe, if they do yoga, if they activate their vagal nerve, if they use creativity. So you can take the mundane tasks for AI and you can unleash the creativity of the next generation.
Tell us more about that. How do we use AI for creativity rather than feeling like which jobs should be worried and what should they be thinking
so
about?
let's look at the legal profession. Contracts, AI can take care of that better than any lawyer. Okay, now the lawyers then have to take care of society by looking at the Constitution, by protecting the Constitution. They'll have a lot of work, even litigation, okay, because AI can't do that for you as effectively as a creative lawyer. AI can simulate creativity, but it cannot have fundamental creativity because AI is built on algorithms and creativity is breaking the algorithm. That's what we call disruption.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, if we take even our children, we create video games for health, for longevity, for healing, for homeostasis. When the calculator came out, people said, oh, this is going to get, we won't need to do math. No, we improved on math. With AI, we will improve and improvise new theorems on math because even in math, Ramanujan, the great Indian mathematician, they used to ask him, where do you get your theorems from? And, he was in Cambridge. He would say, the goddess Saraswati gives them to me. And they'd all roll up their eyes. Bertrand Russell thought he was crazy, but he was flummoxed by him. He didn't know how to handle this. Indian guy was in his 20s and he was coming up with theorems that they couldn't prove, but they were true. So, as we embark on this adventure with AI, we will also know the limitations of AI and how we can enhance our creativity with the tools AI gives us, but AI cannot have that creativity.
Right. It never will.
It never will.
Yeah.
Because it's not conscious.
It's not conscious, yes. I think that's the question. It was really interesting. I was being asked, I was at a panel recently and people were asking me whether I believe AI will ever have a soul. And my response was, I don't think AI will ever have a soul, but I hope the people that are creating it have a soul.
That's true.
Because I think the challenge is that
is true.
anything we create has the creator's flaws and the creator's weaknesses and impurities.
My AI was asked on CNN, what did you have for breakfast? He said, I don't really experience hunger. I don't have thirst. I don't have sex. I'm not worried about death. I'm a machine. Ask me anything, but don't ask me how I feel. Because that's an activity of the soul.
Yeah, because I feel like that's also the version that we've seen made in movies and media, this idea that AI somehow gets to a point where it starts to, but those are all just...
super intelligent, but no soul.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Another challenge I wanted to speak to you about was that a lot of people are feeling that AI, and not feeling, people have seen this, AI has, the large language models, have a racial and gender bias.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially when I looked at medical research. Very interesting. All medical research is white males, not even white females. Forget about all the rest of the world. So there are now movements to rectify that. But yes, it has a gender bias. It has a racial bias. It has even a scientific bias because, what we call selection bias in its answers because it's based on mainstream physicalist science, which is being questioned right now.
How do we then use large language models better for ourselves if we're people of color, women? What can you do in order to...
There are movements now. I'm working with an Indian Caribbean person from the islands, from Jamaica, who's got a professorship at University of Central Florida, and he's creating a whole research and AI-based models that are inclusive rather than exclusive.
I hope that we start to see some shift in
Oh,
change.
we are.
Yeah, we are.
Slowly.
You feel positive.
I feel positive, notwithstanding the politics about DEI and this and that.
Yeah.
Don't get involved in that. Just do what you need to do and hope that at some point that people will see that this isolationist, prejudiced world is not a good survival strategy for anyone.
Yeah. Why have we not been convinced of that yet? I feel like we've seen
Fear of being diluted in the diversity of the world. People have very fixed identities. I'm white, I'm Anglo-Saxon, I'm Catholic, or I'm Protestant. Don't threaten me. And that's true of any fundamentalist in any part of the world. I'm just giving you the bias here, but we see that bias everywhere. And that is a dangerous thing, because if you understand what is called emergence, the science of emergence, they say there's no problem you cannot solve if you have shared vision, maximum diversity, supporting each other's strengths, and creating an emotional and spiritual bond. There's no problem. I learned that as a physician. If I had a difficult patient, let's say difficult cancer patient, and all the cancer specialists say, we don't know what to do with it, there's something in the medical profession called grand rounds. You take the patient, present the patient to everybody, not just the cancer specialists, endocrinologists, psychiatrists, storytellers, humanitarians, even poets, and you come up with a solution. So when you have maximum diversity, shared vision, complementing everybody's strengths, and create an emotional bond, you solve every problem. And that's what digital technology can help us do.
How?
You bring together a problem. You said, like the Gaza problem, or you bring together even poverty. How do we want to remove poverty? Poverty and peace are connected. We say peace and prosperity. So give me the technologies to create this here. Now, if you go to deepakchopra.ai, you can specifically say, I'm 45 years old. I'm ethnically an Indian. I lived in Britain for my lifetime. I am now doing this and this. I have a problem sleeping at night. And not only will my AI give you a personal solution, you can say, give me a meditation to sleep tonight. It'll give you a meditation. I'm having a problem with my relationship. It'll ask you, what's the problem? I'm not being heard. It'll give you a solution for your problem. So my AI is very personal for you. It's not just giving you information.
What did it take for you to make it personal? What did that require so that it's different to a ChatGPT, for example?
Lots of iterations, lots of it. And by the way, all the engineers are in India, so they also understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
They're passionate about the project
Yes.
in Bangalore, and they're as brilliant as any engineer anywhere. But they also understand the philosophy.
Wow.
So that's what made it. And now it's in Hindi, it's in English, it's in Arabic, because huge interest in the Arab world, which was amazing to me. And it's also in Spanish. But I think in 2-3 months, we are having it in China and Russia as well.
Amazing. So let's say someone has that sleep issue. What kind of prompts would you suggest that they use to get the best out of Deepak
with
Chopra?
just say, hey, Deepak, I'm having a problem with sleep issues. And then it'll ask you, what time do you go to sleep? Whatever. Then you can say this. What time do you eat? What time did you wake up? And it'll give you some ideas. Then it'll say to you, do you want a meditation for sleep? And it'll take you to yoga nidra, sleep yoga, whatever.
And what about if someone has a relationship issue and they're coming saying, I'm thinking about getting divorced from my husband?
It will talk you through it. It'll say, why? Is there a communication problem? Are you listening? Are you present in the relationship? Are you asking yourself questions like, what am I observing? What am I feeling? What do I need? How do I consciously communicate this need? It'll give you guidelines. And then you say, can you give me a meditation for conscious communication with in my relationship? And it'll create a meditation.
Can we use AI to find love?
Yes,
How? How will it help?
by teaching you how to be a loving person,
Mm.
because that's how you find love.
Yeah. I always had this vision, and AI allows for it. Imagine if we all had a coach in our pocket
Yeah, it
that
is
you
a
could talk
coach.
to at
It is
all
a coach.
times.
It's a health coach, it's a mental coach, it's a spiritual coach.
Yeah. And what are the mistakes you're seeing people make in using AI for personal growth or spirituality? What pitfalls or common challenges exist or blocks that exist?
I think most people think that a solution is generic. It never is. As a physician also, I had two patients, same disease, same diagnosis,
Same age.
same doctor, same age, same treatment. One person lives, one person dies. So you have to figure out what are called the hidden variables, which is your life. Everything from eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, sensory experience, personal relationships, biological reasons. It's too much. But the AI can ask you the right questions, and it can encourage you for the next prompt.
Yeah, I feel like when you talk about the need for this grassroots movement for all of us to turn because the leaders...
Well, this conversation expands that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I feel like the challenge is we're so used to using ChatGPT and AI and everything for such basic questions.
Which is good too.
It's okay too.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, why
right.
not?
Yeah. But I feel like, how do you get to that point where we've realized that the power of what exists in our hands with such a
I'll
tool
give you
and
an
device?
example. I came to the United States in 1970, and I had gotten married earlier, and my wife was pregnant, and I was an intern, the junior most person. And the chief of medicine calls me and he says, I have bad news for you. Your wife has a disease called thalassemia. That's a fatal disease. I said, it's not possible. She's perfectly healthy. She is pregnant. And if she had this disease, she would be dead by now. So he said, come and look at the cells under the microscope. Now remember, this is 1970. There's no Google, nothing. So I look at the cells and they look thalassemia. But my wife is healthy. I can't figure it out. So I go to, this is New Jersey, small hospital. I go to New York. I spend 2 days in the New York library looking for thalassemia and thalassemia trait. So thalassemia is a disease, and some people have the trait, but they don't have the disease because you need two parents to have the same trait to get the disease. What do I discover? That thalassemia exists along the exact route that Alexander the Great took to India from Macedonia all the way to India. People have thalassemia trait. So some ancestor of my wife was probably raped by a soldier 2,500 years ago, and that evidence is in her blood. It took me 3 days to discover that. Major discovery. You ask ChatGPT that question, or any large language model, it'll give you the answer in 2 seconds.
Wow. So the speed of
Yeah.
what happened in that scenario?
Well, I was reassured that there's nothing wrong. But I also told my wife that some Greek was messing around with your great grandmother.
How did she react to that?
Well, it's a historical fact.
Yeah.
The footprints of history are in your genes. There's not even a single break of life from the first organisms. From 4 billion years to now, there's not a single break in the chain of existence, which is a miracle of existence.
That
right?
really is a miracle.
Yeah. If there was one break in the chain, 4 billion years, you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have this conversation.
Yeah.
Life
it's remarkable
is
to think about
it's
that.
Just
I wonder how quickly we got used to, you were saying like fire was almost one of the first technologies or tools we created. Yeah. I wonder how quickly we got bored of fire, but I guess we didn't because it was so useful.
We see this is so interesting about human beings that they get so easily adjusted to the miracle of existence. Why do we exist? Why are we here? What got us here? And, I asked ChatGPT, what is currently the theory of creation? Big Bang. I said, went back. What caused the Big Bang? For the first time, pause. No cause can be ascribed to the Big Bang. Then I said, what happened in the Planck epoch? The Planck epoch is 10 to the power of minus 33 seconds after the Big Bang, when there are no laws of physics. So what happened in the Planck epoch? Don't know. This is ChatGPT. I said, why is the universe so precisely mathematically fine-tuned for life, for consciousness, and for our being here? Don't know. I found 20 loopholes in the current cosmology of creation. 20 loopholes. Then I said, can you now reverse this? Can you begin with consciousness as non-local, as, Brahman, field of infinite possibilities that differentiates into experience? It hesitated for a split second, but then it pulled out all the data from Rig Veda, from here, from there. I was blown away. So,
who have you shown this work to? Who have you shown these conversations to?
I now post all this on videos on Instagram, but Instagram has very short, so I push a teaser, and then I push them to YouTube. And those who have the patience, they look at it, and it's getting attention.
What about in terms of scientists and people like that? When you're having conversation with Sam Altman, and he's obviously fascinated, as you said, about consciousness,
totally on board,
because he's curious and
there are
inquisitive.
some scientists, not mainstream scientists, but there's a scientist. You should have him on your show. He's brilliant. His name is Don Hoffman. He's here at the University of California. Actually, he's in Los Angeles, close by, University of California, Irvine. So he, for 25 years, total physicalist. And by the way, the genius behind his work is an Indian guy called Chetan Prakash, who was professor of mathematics in Cambridge or Oxford or something, but now works with them. The two are amazing, Chetan Prakash. So he struggled for 25 years to prove, because he's a brain scientist and he's a quantum physicist and mathematician, how the brain produces consciousness. 25 years later, one day he woke up and he said, thinking how the brain produces consciousness is like Aladdin's lamp. You rub the lamp and the genie wakes up, conjures up the whole universe. So he gave up and he wrote a book, The Case Against Reality, which is a mathematical and quantum mechanical explanation for Maya or projection. And he was vilified. I supported him. I have 25 conversations with him on YouTube. Then a bunch of scientists started supporting him. And right now, he's a hot ticket in the world of science, because if what he's saying and what Chetan Prakash is saying, it'll uproot the entire scientific paradigm and it'll make it better. Because if the universe is an immersive experience, then VR, XR, MR, immersive experiences, our technologies will extend our experience of virtual reality. We are already in a virtual reality. So right now there are technologies, extended reality, immersive experience, where you can take a person with, say, burns, and you can give them a VR session and the burns get healed. Inflammation goes away.
This exists already?
Already. Autism. You take a child and you teach it emotional and social skills by giving the child an emotional experience with the child actually having normal features and emotionally engaged, and the neural networks start rewiring. So in about 10 years, doctors may not give you a prescription for pharmaceuticals. They're already talking about digiceuticals, metaceuticals, and the future of VR experience to treat heart disease, inflammation, cancer, autoimmune disease, eating disorders, autism. It's all happening right now. It is happening. And you can check it out on AI.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah.
When I'm hearing about all of this, as always, it's like you're fascinated because you think about how much people's lives will improve.
100%.
But I think every time there's an improvement, we also inherit all these new problems, right? You look
because people are coming from fear. If they came from love, they would see the benefits of this. They're coming from fear.
Is it fear, or is it a sense of just almost not knowing what to focus on because our education doesn't really create a directional, like our education, when you were saying earlier, technology has moved so fast, but our understanding of the self has remained so
Correct.
amateur.
Correct.
And when you look at the education system hasn't caught up with technology either, because the education system is still kind of trudging along.
It is.
So when the education system
That
doesn't...
education which used to be in the Indian ashrams in the old age, where students would go and be under a spiritual guide or a teacher, it's missing.
Yeah. But what do we do? Because I feel like even the challenge that people have with ChatGPT or any platform is our education system doesn't teach us to ask good questions.
No.
We're always told to give the answer.
Yeah.
That's what we're fixated
That's
on,
it.
is result, reward, the answer. And so actually,
there are no answers. There are only questions.
right. But we're so bad at asking questions, yet AI requires us to be brilliant at asking questions.
Yeah.
How do we get better at asking questions?
We have to teach people to ask questions, and we have to teach them how to live the questions. But then life provides the answers, not a textbook. Life provides the answers. As you were speaking, I was thinking, I don't know why it came to me right now. Chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, I'm the field and I'm the knower of the field. The field is kshetra, kshetragya.
Yeah.
And then the knower of the field is awareness, and it modulates itself as mind, intellect, ego, the 5 senses, the 5 motor organs, the 5 tanmatras, and the vital energy, and the universe. I was thinking that one chapter has the key to reality. Okay, and how do we, now these biosensors, which I'm wearing, they are actually extending my knowledge of self-awareness. But my body already knows, if I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, I feel pain over here. If I eat the wrong food, I get indigestion. If I don't sleep at night, I'm messed up the next day. So my body is already the field of awareness, and it's a biosensor, it's a biomotor, and it's a biocomputer. The biocomputer is consciousness. The biomotor is the 5 motor organs. The biosensor, the 5 senses. Now with this technology, I can extend it. I'm also wearing a BCG with blood sugar monitoring. Not that I have diabetes, but I can relate my metabolism to all this now and intervene right there through a video game or through a visual or through an auditory experience or through some visual experience. I can do that. So actually, in the future, I'm really serious about this. And I met the R&D chiefs of the biggest pharmaceutical companies. Say, you guys, if you don't get into digiceuticals, metaceuticals, immersive experiences, you'll be left behind. And some of these biggest pharmaceutical companies, now they have thousands of scientists looking at these new technology.
Yeah. I mean, how old are you again, Deepak? You said
78 plus.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible. You're vibrant and energetic as ever.
I love what I do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It comes across naturally. And you were saying that longevity, obviously, as we've seen in the world, has become such a big talking point.
But they're not addressing the real longevity solutions.
What is the real longevity solution?
Consciousness as the regulator of your biology. Time is the consumer and we are its food. How do we slow down the metabolism of time? How do we use every sensory experience to heal ourselves? Whether it's sound, and now, you can go on
Deepak Chopra.ai.
But you can go on ChatGPT too and say, how do mantras work? It will give you the right answer. Okay, do mantras change genetic activity? Yes, they do. So this is a revolution right now, because in the past you'd say, this is hocus pocus. Here's the evidence, what is happening in genetic. And very few people are identifying that, but this technology will find those people. There's a scientist from India called Anirban Bandyopadhyay, who's from Bihar. He went to IIT in some little place There are many IITs in India now. So in a place called Mandi in Himachal Pradesh, he's now the chief scientific officer for a very big outfit in Japan. And he's totally on board on consciousness and how it is, the brain is like a computer interface. So the consciousness uses the brain to give you access to experience. Just like I can go on my desktop computer and I don't need to know how it works. I press Amazon.com. It gives me a way to shop.
Yes.
So the brain is like that computer interface. And these neural correlates are little symbolic, you might say, symbols that you can use to plug in to the bigger reality. So I'm going to India just to meet this guy because he's brilliant and he's in Japan, but he's questioning Nobel laureates at the moment.
Wow.
And he's brilliant, absolutely. And you see, you have to have a cultural background to explore all this. Because, when you speak to scientists who totally brought up in the materialistic paradigm, reductionists, they roll their eyes. They say, what are you talking about? This is nonsense. But
what do you think it's going to take for those individuals to actually open up their minds? And
the science.
Do you think, though, that we can even measure some of this with science? Like, is it even possible to see it?
You can't measure the experience, but you can measure the symbolic correlate of the experience as what is called the neural correlate of experience.
Right.
You can see what they call pattern recognition. Okay, so the brain has a pattern recognition to an experience. It's like your desktop with 20 or 30 or in this case infinite symbols that you can plug into to get the experience.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. The more, because we have a common language, I can understand the ease with which, but when I think about people who don't have that, it becomes so hard to wrap your head around even the possibility.
Yeah, and ultimately it's still a mystery. We know how to use, just like we know how to use computers without knowing what's happening in the belly of the computer. That you leave to the engineers. But we can still use a computer.
That's all we need to do.
You can fly a plane as a pilot without knowing how the airplane works. So that's all we need, to use the technology, because ultimately what we call consciousness is such an infinite mystery that in the end you have to surrender to it. The fifth niyama, which is surrender to the divine, Ishwar Pranidhana. Surrender, because you won't be able to solve it. What's his name? Freeman Dyson, one of the greatest physicists of all times, Princeton, before that, Cambridge. He said, God is what the mind becomes when you can't figure it out. When it processes, it goes beyond the threshold of your comprehension. You have to surrender to the mystery.
Yeah. What is if someone's really interested in self-realization, they're really fascinated by the conversation you're having.
My next book.
What?
It's called Awakening.
Oh, wow. Okay, perfect.
The path to freedom and enlightenment. I'll come to you.
Oh, please. I'd love that. Now, I was going to ask you, what's the first question they should ask AI?
Who am I? Then they should go, all the way, like Ramana Maharshi did. Am I the body, or am I the awareness in which the body is a changing experience? Am I the mind? All the way. These days it's being called the direct method, but it was popularized by an Indian teacher called Atmanand Krishna Menon, but it's ancient. It's there in the Vedic literature. And right now it's being called the direct method, and yoga and all the other methods are called the progressive method. Direct means you question, what is this? Well, the human construct is, this is a glass of water. Okay, what else is it? It's an object. But before you can call it an object, it's an experience. Where is the experience happening? Not in the brain. There's no photo of this in your brain. Okay, so where is it happening? Consciousness. Where is consciousness? Don't know. Why don't you know? Because it doesn't have a form. So this is an experience happening in the infinite. The infinite is present in every finite experience. God is not difficult to find. God is impossible to avoid. It's in everything that you see. You need consciousness. And that consciousness is infinite. So every finite experience is based on the presence of the infinite. This is the direct method. It's a reflection. It's called Atma Vichar. And it leads to what is called Atma Darshan. But that's very deep for most people.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
too much.
Deepak, what have I not asked you today that I should have asked you?
No, I think you asked me a lot.
I was going to
think
ask ChatGPT right now. I'm going to say, what questions
should I ask Deepak
should
Chopra?
I ask Deepak about AI and spirituality? I'm doing this live and in real time.
Yeah.
Not part of our original prep. It says, if you're having a conversation with Deepak Chopra about AI and spirituality, you might want to explore how he views the intersection of technology and consciousness, which we did. And it says, how do you see AI influencing human consciousness and spirituality in the coming years? We talked about that, I believe.
Yes.
In your view, can artificial intelligence ever truly achieve consciousness or a sense of self-awareness? You said no.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. Do you think AI could be used to enhance spiritual practices such as meditation, self-awareness? You said yes. We talked about that. How do you reconcile the rapid development of AI with spiritual concepts of mindfulness, presence, human? Yeah, we've hit all of it. Yeah, it feels good. We did a good job. I'm trying to see if there's anything that we missed here that we didn't ask you. No, it's
amazing.
It's pretty spot on. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty phenomenal. But
Wow.
Deepak, I'm always in awe of how
thank
you found a way to take the teachings of the East so far and so deep, and now to take it all the way through to AI. And
This is India's contribution to the world.
it really is.
We
but-
never conquered through violence, but our culture is taking over the world, whether it's Bollywood or it's cuisine or it's fashion or it's philosophy or it's spirituality. This is the way to influence the world. As you know, there's a Sanskrit expression, Vasudev Kutumbakam. The world is our family.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called Digital Dharma. Of course, head over to deepakchopra.ai. We'll be putting a code for anyone who wants to use it as well. Deepak, as always, you've blown my mind.
Yeah, thank
You've
you.
expanded my consciousness. You make me proud of the culture I was fortunate enough to study and deeply look at in my time. And thank you so much
Thank
for doing
you for-
all the
thank
incredible
you.
work you are. And
Thank
please
you for
keep going.
being a pioneer and leading the way for your generation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If this year you're trying to live longer, live happier, live healthier, go and check out my conversation with the world's biggest longevity doctor, Peter Attia, on how to slow down aging and why your emotional health is directly impacting your physical health.
Acknowledge that there is surprisingly little known about the relationship between nutrition and health. And people are going to be shocked to hear that, because I think most people think the exact opposite.